Well, I'll go to the river to soothe my mind. Wander over these crazy days in my life. Watch the river flow. Ease my mind and soul. Let it go. The mad pace, the worries just. Let the river take it all away. The mad pace, the worries just. Let the river take it all away. Hey, 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 happy Saturday. Happy the end of the week. And once again, I've made my way to the airport resort for a mini getaway. This time I've bought inbuilt babysitters. I'm just going to sit down here and have a little relax, because I love it down here by the pool. I'll just show you. A little bit of a different perspective this morning, which is nice, and a little bit early this morning because we're off to the craft fair to, oh my God, I just love Christmas. So even if I don't buy anything, but I definitely will be on the lookout for some bargains. But just the homemade stuff and just the love that goes into these creations is such an amazing gift that you can give to someone, really, something that's homemade or handmade, just so much more meaningful, I guess. And so, yeah, I just love going and having a look and seeing what amazing things that I can get for my loved ones. And so we're off to the crafting fair this morning, get some stuff before it all goes, really. And last year I bought this amazing troll, it ended up was, and it wasn't meant to be. Apparently it was meant to be a doll. And she said, it didn't really turn out like it was meant to, but it was like Sunny at the time was really loving trolls, and I was like, oh my God, like she just totally just channeled that for Sunny, it would seem. And so I bought it, and then Sunny named her Pomponce of all things, so Pomponce the troll it became, and she became our little our wet season troll that comes to visit in the wet season. So it's just an amazing thing, but it was never meant to look like the troll, but it just ended up being perfect for Sunny. And when she showed me what it was meant to look like, it was absolutely totally different. So I guess that's how the creative process works sometimes, but then again it just ends up being the perfect thing for someone, and for that time it was the perfect gift for Sunny. So I guess sometimes that creative process just needs to be allowed to unfold, and then it ends up being perfect anyway, which is just such a nice part of creativity, I guess. So yes, how's your week been? How's everybody going? I really would love to start a conversation about how you guys have been going, and checking in and seeing how you're going with the strategies that are in the blog posts and the little things that I've been posting, and just really curious about how you guys are going. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd really love to hear it. Just comment below and check in and say g'day, even if you're watching this a little bit later. You can certainly always comment, because I'm obviously checking back, and I'll check any comments or questions that you might have, because obviously this is a conversation, and this is something that I would really love to hear from you guys. And if you have any questions, then put them my way. I definitely am open to hearing what you guys want to know more about, or what you guys are struggling with, or that type of thing, because certainly I'm talking to people all the time, and I'm obviously putting that into my writing, and putting little tidbits and pointers and strategies and the like, based on what I'm hearing and my work, essentially. But obviously, if there's something else there that you might want to hear about, then absolutely, please let me know, and I can definitely, do some writing on that, or make some comments or whatever. And that is really, I guess, in alignment with that, you're breaking the silence around depression depression and anxiety, or just stress, or just life struggles, as it were. Because if you are asking the question, you can absolutely guarantee that somebody else has that same question and maybe just a little bit too afraid to ask for themselves. So if you're asking it or thinking it, then no doubt someone else is as well. So please, if you have the courage to make a comment or whatever, then who knows who else can benefit from that. It's definitely a big part of that community, really, where we can all sort of help each other, and you guys can help me by letting me know what it is that you want, and I can certainly make my way to responding to that, and no doubt that that's going to help somebody else, because you can guarantee somebody else is asking that very same question. So a few little weird things have happened this week, one of which was, if you watch my live stream from earlier this week, that when Dean had just really a fender bender in the end, but it ended up that the car was a write-off. And so it was so weird, because I was just saying that morning how much I preferred the rental car and how I wanted the little black car, to tell the little black car. But then, as it happens, the car was a write-off, so we're never going to see the little black car again. And so I was like, oh my God, did I just create that? The superstitious thinking that comes along often with anxiety, like don't say bad things because you make bad things happen, or whatever. But, obviously, it's a little bit of a magical thinking that can come along with anxiety, that lucky rabbit's foot, make sure you carry your lucky rabbit's foot, otherwise something bad will happen, or whatever. Or very much along the lines of, don't say bad things. Oh, did you, Jacinta? Oh my God, maybe it's in the air. Again, a bit of magical thinking. The little black cars they're out to get you. No, or they're out to be gotten, as it were. Oh dear. But it's just an interesting point, because that's definitely something that I've been talking about this week with people around the magical thinking that can come along with anxiety, where, we think that we can think things and kind of make them happen. So we sort of try to push away bad thoughts, as it were, in the general sense of the term, don't think bad things, be positive or whatever. But, the reality is that, that we're not that's not necessarily how we're creating reality. I definitely think, our thoughts do influence our outcomes and our habits and our behaviours, absolutely. But, there's not that magical component to it that oftentimes anxiety will say, which means then we try and avoid our thoughts. And so we avoid feeling bad things. But ultimately, that really only serves to perpetuate anxiety, because if we really, really want to, kick anxiety to the curb, or depression, we definitely really need to be open to what it is that you actually are thinking. So not pushing it away and avoiding it, but really doing, a cold, hard sort of stock take around what it is that you're actually saying to yourself, what it is that you're actually thinking, how it is that you're treating yourself. And I did a little post yesterday about this book that I was reading, which was saying about the Stockdale paradox, and how he was saying that we really need to be brutal with the facts, like how what are those thoughts, what are those things that you're saying to yourself, and also then to be optimistic for the future, that our thoughts and our habits can change and do change, but they only change when we're really, really honest first, and that is absolutely the case. So this whole idea of, again, superstitious or magical thinking, which means that we don't want to think certain things. Like if you're thinking them, we're best to know about it, really, and to then be able to look at some strategies around it, because thoughts and habits can change and do change when you make that decision to do that, to change your life, basically. And so just a really important thing, because I definitely noticed that, oh my God, I was just bagging out that little black car. Well, I wasn't really. I was just saying I liked the rental car better, and it is flash, but certainly that's not what we're going to replace the little black car with, sadly. But anyway, so it's just a little pointer, I guess, or a little reminder about the superstitious thinking, and how that can mean that we really drive and strive to avoid our thoughts, whereas what is actually more helpful is a stock take and a real appreciation of what it is that you are thinking, and then having those strategies which you can implement to be able to make a change for the better, which is really all about becoming very disciplined with our thinking, and very disciplined with our thinking habits, because that's essentially what they are. We fall into habits, and they they really will determine your reality, because if you are thinking them all the time, they will determine your behaviour, and what you do ultimately will determine where you end up. And so if your thinking habits are talking you out of doing those things which you know are good for you, and we've all been there, exercise is a good one. Should I, shouldn't I? Oh, God, then I'll have to put on my clothes or my runners, or, and then I'll be hot and sweaty and blah, 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 blah. And before you know it, you're sitting on the couch and you haven't done your body movement for the day. And so that conversation that you have with yourself is absolutely critical as a first step to know how it is that perhaps you're talking yourself out of doing those things that are good for you, and what you could do instead, really, because importantly, coming back to maybe some of the things I was talking about earlier in the week, that it's that reason why, why, and this is the only time we'll ever ask a why question, which is, why do you do what you do? Why would you do it? Like, Friday I was feeling really de-energised and having a really hard week with Sunny and Bodhi, they're both sick, blah, blah, blah. But, to really still get up and do what matters to me, because I've got a really clear idea of where I'm going with this, and so to still get up feeling tired and, really what have I got to say today, and, what difference will that make if I do or I don't or whatever. But it's not really about that, maybe day by day, like it's not necessarily going to make a huge difference whether I do or I don't, but absolutely it's the habit. It's the habit of doing it, even when I don't feel like it. It's the habit of showing up and being here, even when I am tired and I've got my own stuff going on. Like that, absolutely, that's life. But, importantly, that we kind of show up anyway. And that comes about when you have a really clear idea of where it is that you're going and why it is that you're doing what you do, which is essentially your core values, why it is that you're doing what you do, what's most important to you. And if you've got a clear idea about that, you're tuned in with why you do what you do, then decision making really does become easy. Well, this is why I'm doing it. This is why I'll do it when I'm tired, rain, hail or snow or, whatever, that you'll do it anyway. And that's really only comes about when you are really in alignment with what is your purpose, your passion, and that you're determined. You've made the decision, basically. You've made the decision that you want your life to change, and you know the action steps that you need to take. You're tuned in with your why, and maybe you have some support along the way as well. That certainly I've got my supports there that help me to kind of readjust my mindset and my thoughts. That's something that I am committed to, because I absolutely believe that that's really the key to change. Like, you've got everybody has the boundary conditions of their experience and of their thinking, and it's really hard to think outside of that because they're boundary conditions. It's like the prison walls, as it were, and it's really only when someone comes and looks through that and says, hey, well, actually, there's another way of looking at this. Actually, have you thought about it this way? And it's like, well, actually, no, I haven't. And what if I did? What difference would that make? And so really it's only when, someone else comes in and actually shines the light on it that you then have an opportunity to open up. And that can happen really, really quickly. But it really is difficult to do that for yourself, and you may get there, but if it takes you 10 years where it takes you 10 minutes for somebody else to do that, like, why would you do it the hard way? And certainly for me, we're as a family, young family, we've got obviously our budget, but I always budget for professional development, personal development, because I know, like, again, I've got my clear idea of where I want to go, why it is that I'm doing what I'm doing, and I know my life is so much better for it, that when I invest in myself, that I just know that my life is so much better for it, and obviously my business is so much better for it, my relationships are so much better for it, my relationships with my children, infinitely better for it, like across the board, really. And so it's kind of like a non-negotiable, no-brainer. Like, why would you shirk on self-care? Like, why would you shirk on self-development? And it's just such a natural thing for me, I guess. It's been something I've been doing it for many years, all my life, really, and it's just something that I guess as an encouragement, like if you're thinking that you need to be doing it all yourself, or that it's not that bad, I guess that's the thing. Sometimes we get convinced that other people are worse off than us, and so that will sort of go, oh well, what point would you actually decide that things probably could be better and that you could make a change? And so we kind of then maybe compare ourselves maybe unfairly positively and say, well, I'm not a starving person in Africa or whatever. And so then think that maybe it isn't so bad. But I guess it depends on really what you're aiming for. And, if you're aiming for good or mediocrity, and so maybe that is good enough. But if you're actually aiming for something that is maybe beyond the norm, as it were, you're aiming for something that actually is a great life, something that is, where you wake up and you are excited and, you love your life, then that is something that is not actually that normal, I think. Normality is oftentimes about just getting through, and if you don't ever question that the survival mode is the norm, and if you never question that, well, that's probably where you'll stay, is the reality. And so if you want to live beyond survival mode, then you need to know the way out, and you need to know the map, and probably you will need some support to do that. It certainly has been my experience. And so it does really depend on where it is that you see yourself going and that reason why. And if, again, what you want is something that is a great life, something that you really love and cherish and embrace, then that is something that obviously takes work, takes commitment, but it takes a decision that you're going to give that to yourself too. And so that is something it's the internal shift. And there has been a bit of a mantra this week, which is nothing changes unless you do. And we so often kind of look outside of ourselves and say, oh, well, if only the circumstances were different, or if only, my relationship or my partner wasn't such a slob, or, if only my boss wasn't such an asshole or whatever, then maybe my life would be better. But the reality is nothing changes unless you do. And when you start to change, then you do start to make different decisions for yourself, and things really then do start to change. And, that's something that's so key, that you can start to do a stock take in your life, and you can actually start to make different decisions, instill different habits, and then your life really does change. And that's just something that we've all got that capacity. Whether or not everybody wants to make that decision for themselves is absolutely an individual choice. We have obviously free will, but it's up to you as to what you want your life to look like, and what you're aiming for, I guess. And if that's something that is goal directed, and if happiness or just even a better life is something that's on the cards, then it probably is something that you would want to commit to, make a decision, and give yourself as much support around that as possible. And obviously that will probably mean making some changes. Well, definitely will be making some changes in your life, but most of all, firstly, it starts with you. And so I did have had a dream last night, and I was just thinking about it this morning, and it was not one of those kinds of dreams, so I will share it with you. It was so weird though. Like, it was like I'd gone and I was at a bookshop, and I picked up these deck of cards, maybe inspired by my sister. She's really into the cards and stuff. And I pulled out this, and it was this sort of like, life deck of cards thing anyway, and I pulled it out, and it was something along the lines of, it was about channeling the worried mind. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And in my dream, I was like, wow, my community need to hear about this. So here we are. Anyway, so I pulled out this card, and it was something, and it's a bit hazy, as dreams often are, but it was something along the lines of, the worried mind will turn in on itself. And so the worried mind needs a channel. It needs a release. It needs something for it to focus on for good. And so if we actually look at the power of our imagination, it is actually really super powerful. Like, if you just imagine something, it doesn't have to take long. You imagine, well, just the case example, imagine you're driving along and, someone, you have a car accident. We can imagine that and pretty powerfully kind of have a shift in how we're feeling, and have a shift in how we're thinking. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And what about the car? And what about me? And how am I going to get to work? Or, whatever. So automatically even just imagining it, it stirs up feeling, it stirs up thinking, it stirs up planning, and it's just in that power of the imagination. And with the worried mind, what happens is all of that is negative and worrisome and worst case scenario. And so really we've got this worried mind, which is super powerful. It's using our natural capacity to imagine for evil for us, and so it's using that power against us, really. And so this was quite an interesting insight, I thought, which is actually the power for us to channel the worry mind for good, whatever that looks like. And if we look at sort of channeling it, what we're saying is, what are you going to put it into instead? So instead of focusing on all of the negative stuff that could happen, they're having a wow of a time over there. Instead of channeling it into all of the worst case scenario type stuff, as much as that's one part of it, which is, problem solving, identifying those worries and problem solving them. The other part of it, that's not the end of it. That is absolutely never the end of it. The other half is you have to then channel it into something that's good. Like, what are you going to put this power and this superpower, really, and this energy into instead? Because the reality with worry is that it will find something else to worry about. And if you are a worrier, you will know that to be a fact. That, you'll worry about one thing, or that'll resolve, oh, well, that didn't happen, oh, but what's the next thing, what's the next thing? And so this really is an idea around that ever-increasing good possibility where you are... Yes, problem-solving worries. Worries are not to be ignored because they could be problems that are needing to be solved. And so, we absolutely need to do that. First step, problem-solve the worries. But the next step is, well, what are we going to put that energy into now? Which is really looking at what are your options. And so that power of the imagination, and really looking at what could you be using that energy for instead. And so I was talking to, and I don't often see children, and it was actually a real delight to see this little girl. And, we were talking about storytelling and really the mind's capacity. We're telling ourselves stories all the time. And so what about channeling, instead of telling yourself all of these, scary stories, really, what are your alternatives? Could you be telling yourself some different kinds of stories? And obviously her thing as a child was like, unicorns and rainbows and fairies and elves and, all that type of, good stuff. And she was super excited about it. And you can see her come alive when she's thinking about, maybe I could channel this imaginative superpower into something that actually makes me feel safe, actually makes me feel comforted, and makes me feel like I'm connected in some way. And they were her words, actually. And so, very bright young girl. And so, really importantly, like, what could you be, putting your imagination and your imaginative energy into, instead of sort of just worrying about the thoughts? Once you've problem solved them, and that's done, that bit's done, what else could you be visioning or imagining for yourself, so that then you can actually have a sense of calm and a sense of safety? And, to be able to give that to yourself and do that for yourself is such a gift. And it is just as valid and well, I guess it's valid, isn't it? Just as valid and just as real as all the other stories and all the other imaginings, because if we're fearful, those fearful imaginings seem more real. Well, that's not the case. That's actually just what we call emotional reasoning. That just because you're feeling fearful doesn't mean you've got anything to be afraid of, is the reality. And so when we're looking at changing that up a bit, problem solving the worries, then we're actually also looking at the alternative, which is, once we've done that bit, what could you be channeling it into for good? Imagining different things for yourself and being able to make different decisions for yourself. So if you're able to imagine a different future for yourself, or even a different day for yourself, to say, well, how potentially could it go well? Or how, what, again, coming to that question, why? What else is there out there for me? And to see that as just as legitimate, even if it doesn't feel congruent mood-wise. Again, it doesn't matter as such, because just because you're feeling fearful doesn't mean there's anything to be afraid of. And so yeah, it's really, really key. And there's this wonderful story, metaphor really, about there's a man sitting on a train and he's rolling up little pieces of newspaper and throwing them out the window. And the conductor comes down and he says, well, mate, what are you doing that for? Like, rolling up paper and chucking it out the window. What are you doing that for? And the man said, well, I'm keeping the dragons away. And the man said, well, there aren't any dragons. And so, the man, he's throwing them out the window. And the man says, well, there aren't any dragons. And, the question becomes, well, how will he know if that is true? How will he know? Really, really importantly, we live our life like that. We live our life doing things that we think are keeping us safe when, how do we know until we stop doing them? We never actually test the theory. And we all live our life thinking, well, a lot of the time, these things keep us safe, but do they really? And, if you actually really look at the consequences of not acting, is that actually really safe? Is it safe to play small? Is it safe to listen to your anxiety? Sometimes, yes. But if we haven't tested it, we will never know whether dragons exist or not as such. And so really absolutely crucial that we are putting our anxieties to the test, our fears to the test, because without that, life becomes smaller and smaller and, really we cease to feel significant. And, what is it that we most really want in life is really a sense of significance. And if we don't have that, and if you're not working towards that, then, you will feel insignificant, life will feel insignificant, and you won't really feel aligned with your purpose because you're just not. And so, again, if we're looking at that worried mind, the worried mind needs to be channeled. It's such a cool message because it really gives us an option then, of not just kind of managing worry, but just saying, I've got a superpower here that I'm going to channel for good. And what is that for you? For me, it's my writing. Like, I know I've got a lot of activity in my brain and, writing is something that absolutely just tames the beast, as it were. And so I wonder, it could be anything though, if it's music or if it's athletics or sport, or is it, arts and crafts and things like that. What is it for you that, you can absolutely channel that for good and really give yourself something else to focus on, which enhances your life and really makes you feel safe and again connected and calm. Once we start to calm, we feel safe, we feel more connected. And so that absolutely that worry needs to be channeled. We need to problem solve and then to channel it and to recognise that just problem solving is not actually the end point. It needs to be absolutely channeled into something that's good. And so, so that was my dream. And I just thought, absolutely, thought to myself, my community needs to hear about that because that it's just, it's such a beautiful little download, really. So that's pretty much it for today. I'm off to do some craft shopping and Christmas shopping, and I'll have, hopefully, we'll find some really nice things there. No doubt we do every year. And then we're off to hang around the pool for the afternoon. So it's actually a little early birthday present for me as I orient myself to turning 40 very soon. I'm going to ease into it by starting in November when my birthday's in January. But having an older sister who turned 40 before me, I kind of feel like it's okay. I'm cool with that. I'm down with it. And so, we'll have a nice relaxing afternoon by the pool. And, I guess that, coming back to that, one of the titles, I guess, of the live stream is that mini break. Like, certainly, this is a hard time of year as we wind down. There's no public holidays. Like, unless you actually take a time out for yourself, kind of the structures of life don't really give that to you. And so then it's incumbent upon you to do that. And certainly, this is, what we're deciding to do. Years ago, we realised, hey, there's no public holidays this side of the year. And so, have always thought about actually putting in a little mini break this time of year and planning for it because, without it, December feels just so far away and it's exhausting. And so to actually, plan for that, take that time, and whether or not this is quite a big thing to do and it's because it's my birthday and Mum's paying as a gift. So thanks, Mum. But it doesn't have to be this extravagant, and usually it isn't for us, but, just to say, look, we need to have a mini break just to help, us through to the end of the year, that's really important, and it's something that, again, you can give to yourself with the awareness that self-care first and foremost, that without your health, without your mental health, without your energy, then life does feel like a struggle. And so that really has to come first, and then all the other planning stuff and whatever can come later. But, absolutely you need to be putting fuel in your tank and making sure that you're looking after yourself. And certainly, obviously by Friday, that's how I was feeling, and this was already planned months ago. So I was like, this is great timing. But obviously it's great timing because I've planned it, because I knew. So, yeah, it's all about being conscious and deliberate and intentional with your life and giving yourself what you know you need. I predicted I would need this now. Lo and behold, yes, I did. But I predicted it because it comes around every year. Like, if it comes around every year, then, and you keep ignoring it, then, well, obviously it's going to be suffering. So if you recognise it's something that is a routine and it's a habit, or it does come around every year, then why not instill a new habit, which could be really rejuvenating and encouraging and supportive. So yeah, I hope you have a really great day. I know that I'm going to enjoy my afternoon. Hopefully I'll get some more reading in if I've got some babysitters to watch the kids, so I can keep back beside the pool and relax. And yeah, I hope you've had a great week, and I hope you have a really great weekend, and we'll be in touch very soon. Okay, see ya.